I've told this before by my family.
Did anybody get the joke?
No, this is poorly constructed.
Yes.
I had a couple of better ones earlier.
You did. And welcome to the Down and Front Podcast. How's it going, everybody?
Hey.
So normally when I say, how's it going, everybody, I get like a really positive sort of response.
You've never gotten positive. We are constantly overdoing the positive responses.
I'm just not sure why everyone's here. And so thank you for coming out and hanging out with us so much. We're super excited. We're going to be talking about Wonder Woman by Patty Jenkins, one of the latest installments of the DC Universe. Before we get into the nitty-gritty for everything, I would love to say happy birthday, Down in Front Podcast. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Yay! Oh my gosh! Oh my god! What is that?
This is it's Tall Boy Tuesday over here in Brooklyn as usual, and this is not only a tall boy, but it's also a thick boy. It's an Asahi. Super dry. It is massive. It is a full quart of beer.
Oh my god!
So that's how I'm celebrating our second birthday.
Nice. Well, I would love to say everybody for glasses up and sip to that. Hashtag sip to that. Congratulations and happy birthday for Down in Front for 2 whole years. And I remember, I think I may have been the only one of the first recording, but we did a dual recording of Mad Max Fury Road. It was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And then we also did Zombievers.
Zombievers. Even better than Mad Max.
I think that episode was like 2.5, close to 3 hours long.
So was the Beauty and the Beast one.
Yeah, but I mean...
So this is a standard Down in Front podcast affair.
Standard Down in Front. Just a regular standard Down in Front podcast. But we are bringing to you live with our video recording, so we want to say thank you so much for hanging out with us. We got this request from Megan all the way in somewhere in California.
Who cares?
Asking us to see our pretty faces, so here you go. There you go. There you go. Ooh, Vogue.
Everyone Vogue.
Vogue. I'm super excited. I'm glad that we got a bunch of this video stuff because I'm going around the round table a little bit here, and I'm interested to know out of all the podcasts that we've done, and this is actually the 48th podcast recording that we're doing tonight, what would you say is one of your favorite sort of most memorable sort of moments you can think of either a show that you've been on or one that you may have listened to? And I'm going to start with Blewett.
Oh, this one's absolutely the easiest question in the world to answer. It is the unaired Civil War episode. I think we've alluded to it a couple times. We might not have fully, absolutely said this, but we got so absolutely out of control rowdy after Civil War. We just basically spewed nonsense for 3 hours. And then I was listening back, I think I got 45 minutes through and didn't have a single usable point. And it was like, yup, we gotta redo this. We absolutely have to redo this. But it's funny because what it did spawn was the, it spawned a lot of discussion, and I think like 2 or 3 episodes later is when we started doing the lockdown intro wins criticisms out, because basically it was a free form of like, what does everyone think? And then it was just like, people would go on tangents, you start talking about like March of the Wooden Soldier, there was absolute nonsense from this episode. Eventually, I'm gonna go back through and try and pull the best stuff out and then like release it, but it was a magical place.
Oh, just like
Tahiti.
Tahiti. Thank you. Tijuana. Brylan, what do you got?
Yes. I have to say it might be the first podcast I was on, which was the Star Wars Episode 7 podcast. We had about 9 people there recording, giving their thoughts and everything.
Yeah.
We all got to listen to Guillermo's rant about seeing the same movie after seeing Episode 4 30 years ago.
I love his favorite moment. He's like, what the His name was Kylo? Is he he's like Kyle O? Is he like fucking Irish? He was like, no, it's Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren.
Oh, I was like, how long do you think his name was Kyle O Ren? Come on now.
I love that diatribe continued into the Rogue One podcast as well.
Oh my
We'll get back
god.
a year later.
Mocha, same question.
Let's see, the podcast moment would have to be the first podcast that I was on, which was the Logan podcast from about 2 months back, I think it was. But that was really cool. It was really exciting to be on a podcast at all. It was also a great bit of a reuniting moment because I got to see faces from so many people that I hadn't seen in years since my time in Boston. So that was just fun in general on like an emotional level. But also, it was my first time talking to people about like Marvel. That wanted to hear me say things. Usually I just go up to strangers or friends of mine that tolerate it, and I just start talking about how great, these films are. But this time I had an audience that wanted to be there. So that was a huge win for me.
Sir, I work here at the cash register. Yeah, you don't have a choice. I'm going to tell you.
I'd love to see a video of you just going up randomly to Times Square and asking people like quiz questions or something.
I can ask like quiz questions to the guys that are dressed in those really shitty Marvel costumes about their characters.
Can you tell me about the choice that you made in order to go back and save her? What
about Batroc the Leaper? How'd you like that battle?
But yeah, no, that's definitely a highlight memory for me. So
nice, thanks so much. That was a good episode too. We had a good group, a good crew there, and we also have you as our one. I would say one of the better looking guests, and now actual member of the podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Brian, don't be jealous. You have the voice. All right, so give someone the face.
But we all know who's the best looking. So there you go. Caroline, what do you think is what would you say?
Nice segue.
Yeah, I know, right? Your best moment or a podcast or a recording.
I also want to say it was my first one, which was Beauty and the Beast, and that was when I realized that, like, I knew that I could be opinionated about things, but I was really, really surprised by how defensive I got about Josh Gad, who I really have no sentimental attachment to, but I enjoyed having a back and forth with you, even if it was a bit aggressive.
I think you lost, but it's okay.
I don't think so.
We can agree not to agree.
Mike was there, so he could probably.
Mentally was.
So also, I think we were all really silly, drunk, and it was really fun.
It's been a wild 2 years.
Yeah, for sure.
I've only known these guys for 4 months.
I would say one of my favorite ones was just the source material of what we're talking about, and I think we recorded. We would do the mid-season recap and then the finale recap of Game of Thrones. Ooh. And this is an episode that I recently reposted, but after the Hodor episode for Game of Thrones, I think everybody was like...
Really got drunk a lot for this one.
Oh, no. That was Battle of the Bastards. I actually fell asleep and don't quite remember that recording. So yeah, that was crazy. Recording? Yeah, I was the host. I think. If you go back and listen to that one, I was pretty quiet the entire time. I think my other one. So I think the Game of Thrones one was probably my favorite. But at the same time, during those episodes, I think we were already each about 12 to 15 beers in watching the episode, and then we're like, oh, we're gonna record after. Not a good idea.
Gosh.
Definitely not a good idea.
They came out better than they should have.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
Yeah. If anybody would know, it's how much do they drink? Too many shandies. That's how much. But I think my other favorite one is I think we were literally huddled up in Jesse's old apartment, and we were all sitting in a circle, and it was Mike's Blewett's first recording.
Oh, Ant-Man was hilarious.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun because that was another one that we did like same day because we literally just had watched a movie, came back and recorded like on the spot, and. I just think there was like a radiator going in the back, and it was like just tons of shit that was happening all around. But it still came out to be like actually one of the more popular episodes we do have, and I think top 5 of the Marvel films out. So I thought it was pretty.
We kept on opening and closing the window because we're like, sound quality. I'm dying. Sound quality.
So hot. Yeah, I mean that was super fun. But I would say thanks so much, and I would say cheers to everybody for a Down in Front podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And
happy birthday!
Happy birthday
for a couple more.
And
Feliz cumpleaños.
we don't speak Spanish here.
Tanjo Biomedeto.
Baxter.
Yeah. And we want to say thank you so much. So we're super excited to be getting to our conversation of Wonder Woman. But I'm interested to know, Mocha, what you been watching?
So I have been watching some anime lately, and I recently started a show called My Hero Academia, which is pretty dope. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I've kind of fallen out of the whole shonen manga scene, like fighting anime scene. But this one has had a lot of buzz lately, and it seems to be living up to itself so far. Dope animation, a fun story, cool abilities, all that good stuff.
Where do you watch this content?
Oh, I watch it on Crunchyroll. Our sponsor? Are they sponsoring us right now?
Sure. Everybody's the world is your sponsor, my friend.
A good friend of mine, because I'm broke, gave me access to his Crunchyroll account. And so now it's opened up a whole world of Japanese animation, and I'm very excited to
free trials. Woo! Free trials.
But yeah, that's what I've been watching.
Cool.
Massively.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much for being one of the newest members of the Down in Front podcast. So I'm super, super appreciative of you, especially because we started this with 4 people, I think, in the room, and we were just literally hanging out so much so you can hear the cars growing in the background, and I think a couple cats got ran over, so it was terrible. So I'm glad that we at least upgraded our systems to the state-of-the-art equipment that we currently have today. So Soup's excited about that.
One microphone still in the middle of the living room. Although the first one was all done with just off the computer, right?
Yeah, the first one was done on an iMac.
Yeah.
Yeah, on an iMac in a
wow.
random room too. So I was super, super excited. But Rylan.
Yes.
I'm so glad to be seeing your beautiful face right now.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. What you been watching? What you been sipping on? What you sipping on?
Right now, I'm finishing up my birthday haul of the Sam Adams special brews I got from the Sam Adams Brewery. And I'm drinking the Stony Brook Red. So it's a nice Belgian-style red with a hint of tart fruit and toasted oak character. Reds are some of my favorite beers, and this is probably the best Sam Adams flavor out there. So I saved the best for last.
Nice. And what you been watching?
I watched a documentary that's exclusive to Hulu called Batman and Bill.
Oh, yeah, I want to see that.
And it goes into the story of Bill Finger, who was, for the longest time, kind of like a silent father of Batman, where Bill King got all the glory and the front page news about he was the creator of Batman, but there's also Bill Finger, who came up with a lot of cool ideas, like the Joker and Robin and things like that. And it's about one man's crusade about getting him his credit. What I really like about this documentary is that it really tells both sides of the story very well. It keeps a good balance, so it's not just one-sided to the crusade. It also goes into, hey, there's some things that Bill kind of did to put himself in this position. You got to understand that. But also at the same time, it's good to see creative people get the credit they deserve.
Nice, thanks so much, man. Super excited about that. I saw that and I really wanted to get into that, but right before I clicked that, I think there was another documentary that had popped up on Hulu that talks about the creation of sort of Calvin and Hobbes. So I was battling between that one and this guy's sort of life, going through that. So I thought that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Awesome. Blewett.
Yo.
How's it going, man?
Not bad at all.
I miss seeing your face.
Well, I miss seeing yours.
Oh, thoughtful. This is a video podcast. We need to like up our stakes a little bit.
Yeah, got it. One of the reasons you haven't seen me is I went to a bachelor party over this weekend where we did a brewery tour one day, and I drank more craft beer than I think I've ever had in my entire life. I also supplemented that with a normal daily dosage of Bud Light. Nice. Right now, tonight, I'm drinking water. Because recovering from that was fun 2 days ago, and it is now day 3, and we're still recovering. But anyways, what I saw, I recently saw Mastermind on Netflix. It is a Zach Galifianakis and Kristen Wiig vehicle of comedy. It stars.
I thought you were talking about the animated version of it.
No, this is a real life. This is the real deal, baby.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the greatest movie that I've ever seen for that 2 hours because I wasn't watching anything else. Yeah, it has some funny moments.
Damn it, you got me. I was like, damn it.
It has some funny moments, and like Galifianakis played the character pretty well, and who was it? Sudeikis shows up midway through. That was
Jason Sudeikis.
He's always entertaining.
Spoiler alert for the people who hasn't seen Mastermind.
Yeah, I don't mind spoiling this one because it's an awful movie that no one should waste their time with. No, it's a great.
I think you should watch it.
It's fine to watch if you're just like hanging out and just want to have background noise and want to like look up and like laugh a little bit.
Me and Mike were very intensely watching it. I don't think we talked the whole movie.
No. Of course not, but I'm just saying that this is what my recommendation for most other people. Of course, we were sitting there in strict silence watching this movie. Not even a morsel of popcorn
Huge
or a
fan of Kristen Wiig and Kate McKinnon.
Yeah. That's really it. At least since the last time we talked. I saw Pirates 2. I had a little bit too much rum during the middle of it, and that's why I didn't do the review because I felt like I had nothing important to say. It was very okay. If you want an official grade on it, it was probably a C+. It had some redeeming characteristics.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks so much for coming. I appreciate it.
No worries. I appreciate it.
Miss Caroline. Good to see you on. We haven't seen you in a few weeks. I think the last episode we saw you was Power Rangers.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah, that was about 6 months ago.
No.
I'm not very good with time.
That movie came out in April.
How's it go?
It's, it's kind of just okay right now.
What you been watching?
So, yesterday I finished the first season of True Detective. I think I sent you a Snapchat about it.
Yes, you did.
Whoa. Oh my
Awesome.
God. It was so good. And like creepy. It was so, oh my gosh, it was intense. And then I started trying to watch the second season last night, and it just like didn't engage me as much. I had to like rewatch the episode this morning because I wasn't really sure how like the 3 cops connected and why Vince Vaughn was there. But so I'm like trying to watch that now.
Okay. Fair enough.
And here and there I'll watch some episodes of Black Mirror.
Nice.
Because again,
another show that we both watched together. So
yeah.
I'm glad you're keeping up. Those shows are great.
Yeah.
And what you drinking?
I feel like your feelings towards season 2 of that show is pretty in line with what everybody thought when it aired too.
Yeah,
I heard like a lot of
that's
diehard fans
hard.
just fell off immediately.
I
Sucks.
thoroughly enjoyed that show. I think me, Guillermo, and probably Dave Groves were the only 3 people that liked that show this entire time for season 2 of True Detective. But and Brylan, we didn't talk. We didn't talk about it though.
I mean,
it was much more of a slow burn, I think, compared to season 1. You didn't really get into what's going on. But it's also like a different contrast in noir. So you're dealing with like a West Coast LA noir style story in that second one versus the more deep South noir that's really in your face.
Yeah, I like that kind of environment, I think, and just like everyone's so used to California.
Yeah.
And what you drinking on?
I'm drinking Harpoon Cambuana mango beer.
Show the audience the bottle. We have the power of a visual medium now.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. It's so weird. I actually don't know how I feel about it.
The beer?
No, the
I was like,
the fact that people can
there's
see
3
my
missing,
face.
so I think you may like it. Cool.
Yeah.
And I'm Warren, your host. You can see my face. Hold on. Okay. And I am currently sipping on a little of a William Hill, it's a Pinot Noir, from Estate Wineries, 2014, from the North Coast. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Brylan, you would probably thoroughly enjoy this. This is it has a good strong bite, pretty earthy, but at the same time, it does mellow out after about maybe a few minutes after you've sipped it, so it definitely lingers on the tongue a lot more than I thought. So definitely kind of check this out. Hashtag sip to that. Hashtag friend with lens. And
awesome.
then
What was the name of it again?
William Hill.
William Hill.
Yeah, Bill Hill. Bill Hill. Good old Bill Hill.
Good old Billy Hill.
This was one of the first times that I went back and just because now I have we use Crunchyroll. I have been delving into a lot of different stuff that I've been watching. But there is an anime that it's one of my favorite that actually has stopped, and it's actually on hiatus for. Everybody thinks indefinite, like it actually may not come back because the creator has so many health issues, which is a very common thing, which is very sad in Japanese culture and Japanese animation and manga and anything sort of media, that these guys literally have worked themselves to death. So it's kind of sad, but I really hope that a lot of these people have a chance to kind of get some rest as much as they need, as much as possible. And so you've been seeing a lot of the more of the popular ones that's coming out, and they stretch it out so that these people can have breaks. And the breaks are like maybe a week, and then they work for like 4 or 5 months straight, and then go on break for a week. So it's pretty crazy. But the anime that I've been watching is called Hunter x Hunter. And this show, has anybody seen it here? I know you.
No.
I know for sure, definitely you haven't. Now, this is really aimed at you, Mocha. Really.
I haven't seen it yet.
And it's okay. I know, Brylan, you also watch a lot of anime. I think Jesse does too. But this show it's like an epic story that talks about a little boy, and his father's kind of sort of legendary, and it's just like a whole other thing that's happened to him. But you follow this one boy, and then you follow these 2 kids, and they go into this whole different thing. And it really started as like a animation for kids, and then it really ramped up, spoiler alert, for like the 3rd season when cannibalism is introduced and these monsters are killing these little kids, and I was like, what am I watching? So it's a really good show. It's very like, even the manga itself, like it's been off for, I think it came back this year in January for 4 weeks, and then it's been stopped since, and it's June right now. But he took a hiatus for 1.5 years, and now this hiatus may last for another 2 or 3 years before he comes back and finishes. So he's literally right in the middle between a cliffhanger in the manga, and everybody's like, what's up? So it's one of my favorite ones. I really like it. And I'm super excited to talk about our feature title, Wonder Woman, by director who actually wrote and directed Monster, Patty Jenkins. I don't know if everybody knew about that.
I watched that today.
I knew it.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. And
That's a tough movie.
I mean, I'm super excited to kind of really get into the nitty gritty. I also don't want to really focus on, like, we all know, at least for now, that DC has not been doing too well with Batman vs Superman, not Batman, but like whatever movies you can think of they coming out with, and we've like, it's kind of a still sour taste in our mouth of Suicide Squad, which I believe is their last one. So kind of
Academy Award winning Suicide Squad.
Oh no!
Yeah, first Academy, Marvel 0.
I mean, it's fair.
It was a fun movie.
Oh, no, we're stopping. We're stopping.
Alright.
It's somehow on topic with what we're about to talk about, but we should still cut it there.
We're not talking about that. But I'm super excited. Let's start getting to like some of these things that we really enjoyed and liked about the movie. I'm super glad that we actually have somebody who, because if you can always clearly see here that normally we're a bunch of dudes having a podcast that talks about a lot of dude things. So I'm going to start with Caroline here that talks about some of the wins of why you enjoyed, if you enjoyed the movie, and things that just kind of, some things that are actually lingering of, you know, this is awesome. This really speaks to me in X, Y, and Z. So talk to me about Wonder Woman.
Okay, I got a couple things. I really loved that Robin Wright was in the movie, who plays Princess Buttercup in The Princess Bride. It was really cool. I as I was like reading about Wonder Woman like yesterday and today, it was really cool to see like that there was some post online that said like 2 of my favorite princesses became generals, and it was Princess Buttercup to
Antiope.
thank you.
Antiope.
Yep. And then Princess Leia to General, which, whoa. I was like, that's like really cool, and like that's...
Well, it's going to be a year of the ladies, really. Wonder Woman,
Seriously.
and then Rey looks, all in 30 seconds, pretty
What?
cool.
No spoilers. That's what he's talking about. We're not talking about Star Wars
Anyway.
yet. Continue, madame.
Okay, so like even just the first like scene with when we're watching the Amazons fighting and seeing like little Diana, like how pumped she is, like she just was like fearless, and that's just how she was like the whole film. She like just she didn't really change, which I thought was great. She stayed like true to herself, and like she had some pretty good values. Like when they were in No Man's Land, everyone was like, what are you doing? Like you need to like duck and cover, and she was just focused on like the tiny battles, like saving civilians, which is like things that people, I think, I mean, I'm not in the military, but like probably don't always think of when they're like they have one goal in mind, like one mission. So I liked how like compassionate she was and how realistic she made it seem to go forth with her compassion, because she wasn't just like, but the innocent people, what will we do? She was like, no, fuck this, like the innocent people, we're gonna go save them and help them. And I was like with Steve for a little bit, like, no, like what are you doing? Focus on like just getting to the front lines. But I mean, like, you gotta trust Wonder Woman because she knows what she's doing, and she was right. Like, you gotta like have empathy.
Yeah, even for the fact that the name of that part was No Man's Land, and it was just easy enough to be like, well, she's a woman.
Well,
so,
yeah,
she's
exactly.
gonna do what she's gonna do.
Well, that was historically
Yeah.
accurate. I also like how trust was earned over the movie. Chris Pine's character didn't automatically just be like, oh, she's this crazy Amazon warrior. It kind of built up to that until you got to that moment in No Man's Land, and they're like, no, we gotta go help her. Let's go.
I mean, even talking about that No Man's Land, just to hop on that point here, I really also felt that there's a lot to be said of, hey, somebody's going to tell me that I'm not going to do something, or somebody's going to tell me that this little thing's not going to matter, and she really made it seem like, don't tell me what I can and can't do, because everything matters.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and do what I know what's right. And I think that was a pretty powerful, you see it a lot of different acts, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, but I think that was super powerful to see as a message.
I want to like touch on that a little bit. Like, there were a couple times where she was definitely like, you can't tell me what to do, and I was afraid that it was gonna come across like a whiny teenager kind of thing, but she was definitely just like, no, like, not like I'm gonna do whatever I want, but she's like, this is the right thing to do, and this is what we should do.
Yeah, it was like all of those moments where she railed against the men around her telling her what to do were all driven by logic and compassion, not just like personal selfish desire. And like that scene where she crosses No Man's Land in the trailer, I saw that and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. She's getting shot at, she's blocking the bullets. But when that moment happened in the movie and she drops her fur coat as she's climbing the steps and you see the armor and the shield and she just steps up and walks out, was so cool and so powerful in the actual film itself, like given everything that led up to it.
I thought it was a absolutely beautiful trailer shot. and then you're right, it somehow didn't lose. It's one of those rare things that you saw in a trailer, it got you amped for a movie a year ahead of time, and then you saw it in the movie and you're like, oh, I'm still as amped as when I first saw that scene.
Well, that's another thing that I would say, that would be like one of the only reasons why you can show me a scene, you can show me a teaser and show me something in a particular trailer without giving me context. Because just like Mocha was talking about, like, okay, literally what's happening, or she is blocking bullets as she's running. Cool, I mean, that looks like a great scene. But now you throw it into the movie and you throw me some context of she's blocking bullets, everybody's telling her not to do it because she's trying to save a place that everybody else has already written off. And now she's just going by from, like, her instincts of, like, what's right to, like, she's gonna do what's right in that moment. That's what makes it more powerful. That's what makes it a scene that you want to watch. And I would want to watch a movie like that. And so if that is in the trailer, and I still haven't seen the trailer, but I'm excited to know that what they put in, what they took out, and if they put just like a snippet of she's running and blocking bullets, that looks pretty cool. But that action, it means much more after you see, like, her actual discovery and her objective of that scene. So that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Super excited.
Yeah.
Mr. Mocha,
Yes.
your thoughts, your wins on. Tell me a little bit about Wonder Woman.
Yeah, so, right away off the top with the wins, Gal Gadot completely delivered when it came to this role. She killed it. Gal Gadot, if you're listening, that's pretty cool. Thanks for listening to the podcast. But also, you were amazing in this movie. You were absolutely incredible. Her lines and her behavior was always delivered with the most dynamism of any of the actors on the screen. She really stood out, and she made me feel that the character was real, that she was really this person who was experiencing the world for the first time, that she was really this person motivated by her desire to do good and to actually bring peace, as opposed to just being a prop. And when it came to the combat, she was a complete beast. She owned the fight choreography. She looked great doing it. And there was just some real meat there from her as a personality and also as a combatant. So Gal Gadot, shout out to you because it was really cool.
Yeah, Gal Gadot, I mean, she definitely embodies the character that is from the comics, and this might be one of the most truest characterizations from the comics as well. And, like, I just like that she's kind of relative unknown, and she, like, kind of owns this movie. The only other movie I saw her in was Batman vs. Superman, and she was kind of like the high watermark in that movie as well.
Yeah.
One little cool thing I learned about, like, the accents, she's Israeli, so she actually taught the rest of the Amazonians, like, how to speak with an Israeli accent, so all the Amazonians spoke like that.
That's
That's awesome.
So,
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I was really that was arguably, like, I know we weren't going to talk about any other DC film, but I'm going to mention this because not watching trailers, that was by far in the Batman vs. Superman movie, the best part of the movie is when she shows up, and I know Mike's going to talk about the music in a moment. Mike Blewitz, excuse me. Other Mike, lesser Mike. There we go. So
All those are acceptable.
So he's going to talk about the music, but that scene in which he shows up in Batman vs. Superman, I was on the edge of my seat because I had no idea that they even casted a Wonder Woman. I had no idea she was going to even be in the movie. So I was like, I thought for sure that the woman in that movie was like a Catwoman because they showed her, right? And I was like, oh, she's like Catwoman, all right. But then she comes up to be Wonder Woman. I was like, this is why I don't watch trailers. So I was super,
well, that was a good
excited.
one to skip. That was a terrible, terrible trailer. And everyone knew it immediately. Everyone's like, they did this one wrong.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. When she showed up in the film, like, that actually, for Batman vs. Superman, her appearance saved that movie for me near the end. And, her entire presence to this movie made it what it was. I thought that in terms of the visual effects were really good. Themyscira looked gorgeous. It looked great. The really subtle effect of the barrier that protects Themyscira, or hides it rather, from the outside world, was really executed well visually. When the characters first start to step through it, it actually kind of looks like they're walking through fog. They don't just, like, walk through night and come out in day. And so I thought it was really subtle and well handled. And the tone of it was great. The movie starts off in Themyscira with, the Amazonian culture, and things are kind of innocent and pure, and it's paradise. literally at Paradise Island, and the colors are really bright and vibrant. And then as soon as you leave that area and enter the world at war, the tone completely shifts to what you see more consistently in Zack Snyder's DC films, which is much darker, much grittier. And I felt like the tone helped the story's narrative move along, but it also made it really in line with the rest of the films that Zack Snyder did, which is great from a far out perspective, because this is all supposed to be part of the DC extended universe. And it's all part of the tapestry that they're weaving to get towards the Justice League. So I was glad to see that cohesion there.
Yeah.
Again, the action was really cool in general. And I really appreciated the way they approached Wonder Woman's character. Diana it was very clear that she was experiencing a world that she had not been a part of before and didn't know a lot about. So there was a lot of confusion and misunderstanding on her part, but at no point was she fearful. At no point was she a damsel in distress. Which I thought was, a really great intentful move on their part, and I think they executed that flawlessly. So
yeah, I want to jump on that real quick. I'm really glad they didn't make her seem just like a silly fool. Like, they didn't make it like there were parts of the new world that she was confused about, but they didn't make it seem like it wasn't like a like it wasn't comedy relief that she didn't understand what was going on, because she just figured it out so quickly, because she was just
and also the other stuff was all very practical, like her trying on all the dresses and having, it wasn't that she didn't understand because she didn't understand what fashion was, but she really was just yeah, this isn't practical because I can't high kick in it, get me a new one.
Right.
So I think I like how they drove. It was practical idiocy.
Well, I mean, even taking it a little bit step further, besides practicalness, it was also a sake of equalness, of saying that, hey, you don't have to put me in something that looks pretty. I can be wearing literally the same thing that you're wearing, and I think she was wearing almost the same thing as Steve Trevor was wearing, with the hat and a pantsuit, and she was wearing a suit with legs, and at that time that was kind of unheard of, or it just wasn't known to be women are normally not wearing it. And even look at his Steve Trevor's secretary, right? She was wearing a dress and a little bit different. So the fact that she's wearing a suit, just like Steve Trevor's wearing a suit, just so that men or women, at least in her eyes, should be at the same level. That's what I kind of.
Oh, I don't think she cared about that at all.
No. I don't think
she just wanted to be able to high kick
in the moment. Yeah, in the moment. Yeah, but I think that's a choice that what Patty Jenkins or the directing choice.
Right.
That's why I think it was. That's a big move. That's a very important move to say. You could have put her in a dress. Yes, that's very true. You could have put her in her outfit, which is a shorts or a skirt. Yeah, that's very true. But then they end up choosing a suit. There's something deliberate there of choosing a suit. Literally the same color and it's almost the same thing as Steve was wearing. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Also, speaking about Steve and secretaries, other characters, the ladies really, really brought it home on this film as a whole. Everyone from the various Amazonians on Themyscira to, I can't remember her name, I believe it was Etta or Eddie, but
Etta,
Steve Trevor's secretary, she was really funny, she delivered on her lines.
She was in Shaun of the Dead. I had to
exactly,
look her.
yeah,
I was
who is she in Shaun of the Dead?
She was the girlfriend who was dating the guy that was in love with Sean's girlfriend. The one who grabs the leg and runs out and puts out his zombies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was her, dude.
Different.
Yeah, that's why she definitely looks different on that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
But you know what? She delivered. She was great. She was really funny in her role.
Very funny.
And speaking of, the comedy, there was some really solid humor in this movie. Some of it was pretty subversive. I got a kick out of it. When Diana comes across Steve Trevor bathing in the healing pools, and he stands up, and she points at him and he looks down, thinking it's this, she's talking junk, but she's really talking about the watch. And he grabs it and he says, "Oh, well, this tells me where to go. It's telling me the time, where to go, where to be." And she says, "You let that little thing tell you what to do." And that was a fun little
oh my gosh.
Wow. Joke. Beautifully executed.
Great physical comedy. So good.
Yeah,
and it was self-aware too. When when they are, trying on different clothes and trying to make sure that she blends in with society, they give her a pair of glasses to put on, and the secretary Edda's response is something along the lines of like, "Oh yeah, so you give her a pair of specs and suddenly she's not gorgeous." This is like a nice little nod to Superman, right? Where you put glasses on him and suddenly like no one knows who he is. It's really self-aware in really subtle ways, and I appreciated that a lot. So some solid writing there.
See, it's funny. I went with the "She's All That" connection. I didn't even think about Superman, which that makes more sense in a DC movie.
That's so true.
That's what I thought. I saw the spectacles. I was like, oh,
"She's All That."
Yeah.
I didn't think She's All That. I thought Superman.
I thought truthfully, I've never seen
gone.
not "She's All That," but I've seen not another teen movie.
Is it the? Oh, okay.
So I feel like I've seen
that movie starring Chris Evans.
Right.
You mean,
Yeah. We'll talk about it. We're
Human
gonna talk-
Torch. Who is Captain America?
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. He is in both.
Chris,
I know. Anyways, Mocha, what else you got?
No, that was the extent of it. It was really tight. It was a really it was a good movie. It was a strong origin story. And yeah, I'm just really happy that DC finally executed. We can have an entire podcast in and of itself talking about all the different ways that the DC Extended Universe has screwed up over the past few years. But even though I'm a Marvel fan through and through, and I don't read as many DC comics, I don't want to see comic movies fail in any regard. A win for DC is a win for all of us, in my opinion. So I'm glad to see that they're stepping outside of the range of just letting Zack Snyder do their films and delivering with some solid content.
Yeah, I guess just looking at even taking a step back, I at least personally, I don't think any of us like seeing any movies fail for anything, just because somebody somewhere has studied. Shut up. Somebody somewhere has studied and either wrote that script or went to school for this and has poured in so many human hours to try to make this as best as they can, just to say, well, that was awful.
The Emoji
and also,
movie.
We're
That's all you need to say.
You haven't even seen it though.
Yeah, but it's gonna be terrible.
But you haven't seen it.
There's the disappointment that you wasted your money on seeing.
You don't have to pay for all these movies. So, Brylan, what you got?
It's true.
Yeah, just to add on to Chris Pine's character, Gal Gadot is definitely Wonder Woman. I think Chris Pine is Steve Trevor from the comics as well. One really thing I like about him is not only his charm, but also you find that he's this guy that's definitely focused on the mission. He's a workaholic. He's married to his job. And through that, when she's being inquisitive about, how's your society work and everything, he honestly doesn't know, because he has this job that he thinks is very vital to saving the world, pretty much. And I think he captures that really well. And especially see that he's willing to give the ultimate sacrifice to save everybody from Dr. Poison and the General and all their gas experiments. Mm-hmm. I really think it's a really smart idea to put this during World War One, especially in the UK, because if y'all have seen any shows like Downton Abbey, they really capture the society right now in World War One, 1920s London. Not really a really good time for women. They're fighting to get a vote and be able to vote for politicians. But also they have repressive rules against them, where they have to walk down the street being escorted by a man, or they have to be married by a certain age, or they have to give up certain dreams they have or anything. And then you have it's really cool that they actually set London as this dark gray area that's full of industrial smog and everything. So it looks like all dark and gray. And then one woman walks in and she's red and blue and all this very colorful vibrancy coming out of her. I thought that was a really good dichotomy of tone that came through as well.
This is London. It's hideous.
It's not for everyone.
Yeah. Certain lines like that, I'm like, it's so nice to see the difference between, correct me if I'm wrong, but Captain America #1 was
World War II.
World War II? Okay.
That's why it was World War One. What is it? The initial story is World War II. And if they must have changed it because Captain America.
Because I was wondering that, and just looking at the difference between, you have literally the American poster boy that can kind of do whatever he wants, and then you have the exact, arguably the exact opposite that has to kind of work for all that she wants, but at the end, they're both superheroes fighting for good. So I think that's a pretty good sort of comparison. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I really like how they handled the horrors of war and just tying in the influence of Ares throughout, like, the wars of men. I thought it was a really cool theme to go with, is that he may not be the direct person that starts the war, but he'll just nudge them in the right direction to kind of, like, get humanity off the planet and have a planet all to himself. And it was really a good emotional moment where Wonder Woman realizes, like, okay, so it's not Ares that's actually causing this war. Even if I defeat him, man will have a sense of war or have the tendency to go into war to settle their disagreement. So that actually kind of lets her see that that's why she's important to the world as well.
Yeah.
That's where she kind of fits in, is that, hey, I mean, Amazonians, they're there to be the purveyors of love and justice and truth. And if they're not around, then men will just fight each other and kill each other off.
Yeah. I think that was also a pretty powerful moment of, Steve doesn't quite tell, Diana about this. Like, he looks at it, he sees it, and he understands, at least because he even alluded it to the kind of going up there that he's a spy. So he lies, he steals, he cheats, he kills. He does all these things that arguably, if we can think about this, a spy is kind of one of the, I'm not saying he's the worst human being, but they have to do a lot of things that it's kind of difficult to do, to say that, hey, is this guy
it's a moral gray area.
Yeah, is this a good person or a bad person? And it's like kind of like black and white, and so he's really kind of about that particular sort of case, and he really let her learn on her own. And I really like that fact of, well, you're not gonna quite get it. You think that it's only based on one person, and once you kill this one person, it's all gonna stop, but it's not. Like, now that the Ares and that sort of deceit and that sin, that it's already there, because that's people. There's some good people and there's some bad people in the world, and now you have to kind of live with that, and arguably you have to learn that on your own.
That's a good point. Because he never really said to her, like, you don't get it, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And that was really good. Like, you're right. Like, he did let her figure it out on her own, and he was like, kind of just suggested a different way of thinking.
Yeah, I also think that's like even more impactful, because if you just see you're watching a movie for not dialogue that you see two characters speak into each other, but you're trying to see what actions are conveyed by the actions of a protagonist, antagonist, anti-protagonist, like however you want to word that. So seeing it like physically on screen of she kills Ludendorff. Ludendorff.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
Professor Lupin.
Yeah. No. That's Ares.
Oh, right.
But so she kills him, and she looks up, and she's like, "Oh, it's over." Oh, and then she has a moment of like realization a little bit. She has a bit of a turn in herself of, "Wait, you know nothing, Gal Gadot," sort of moment, and nothing. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. But it was nice to be able to see that she doesn't quite understand, and now, from what Hippolyta has told her way back when, there's so much that you don't understand, there's just so much that you don't know, that's just now something that she has to like figure out of, well, A, she didn't really kill the right guy, but B, she just killed somebody else who had nothing really to do with everything, and C, even if she did, like, there's clearly something wrong here with humanity, maybe, or they're just good and bad people.
He's still sick.
I think it lends like a sense of honesty in their interactions, that they didn't quite either tell each other they were wrong, because they were both out of their element. She was in a world that she'd literally never seen before. She'd been within a square mile of her house her entire life. And then he was in a world briefly for a moment that people were jumping off cliffs and doing crazy trick shots with bows and arrows. So they both seriously shook their philosophical cores, and so they didn't have any right to tell each other they were wrong, because truthfully they learned that they both didn't have any idea.
Yeah, cool.
Absolutely.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Anything else?
One other thing I have is I thought Connie Nielsen was great as Hippolyta, especially the scene where she's telling young Diana the story of Zeus and the gods. I thought that was a really great visual way of telling that story with the motion matte painting. And I like that the DC universe continues to like keep this visual theme of like they're wanting to bring the Alex Ross covers to life. That they want to have like something a little less cartoony than the Marvel ones, and something a little bit more serious, a little bit more above and beyond when it comes to visual quality as well.
For those viewers either watching on YouTube or listening at home, Alex Ross is a god among men in terms of comic book artists. He's just like a really phenomenal artist. You should check out some of his stuff on his Instagram. He has a YouTube channel as well. But he has like he uses like a really strong sense of realism. But like all of his art is really just like, I don't know. There's like a glow, like an otherworldly like power to it. I don't know. It feels super when you're looking at the images that he draws of characters like Superman or Wonder Woman or Spider-Man. So definitely look up his work if you have a chance.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. Blue, what you got?
Cool. I got a couple things. In terms of the action, I think that what DC really excels at is these brute force, just absolute like mayhem scenes. This is going back to not Batman Begins, the Batman vs. Superman, where I think arguably the best scene in that movie was Batman clearing that room. And it was just him going to town on people. There was really kind of quick cuts around, and it was really violent. I thought that Wonder Woman did a great job in following that up. I really liked how they built into her cutting loose. Like, at first I was like, oh my god, like, they're cutting very quick like they did in Iron Fist. It's like making Gal Gadot look like she can't fight. It also makes it look like they didn't have the CGI budget to CGI her to fight. So, but as soon as she had that stand-up moment, she took off her coat and walked across no man's land. It was like, all right, well, the cuffs are off. Here she goes. And I thought they did a great job of either making up for her with CGI, because there was a lot of that, or just having her do, or her stunt person do those stunts themselves. I thought, we had to talk about the trench climb. One thing I thought visually, the lasso was incredible. I thought they did one scene in the credits where they had it twirling around. I was like, oh, that's a sling blade.
Yeah, sling ring.
Slingshot.
God damn it.
Yeah. So it looked like a sling ring. But it looked incredible. Like, Strange obviously had better special effects overall. But that lasso, especially that one scene where she was whipping it around. I think it was her fighting Ares on a rooftop, and like he was whipping like stuff at her, and she had the whole thing circling around her. It looked incredible. It looked like Yondu's arrow. To draw like a recent comparison that we just did, it like really was an incredibly well done graphic. I think that. So, touching on the characters, I think that they did a pretty decent job, besides for the one running sex joke. Like, they just couldn't get that out of their heads. And I thought the first time it was funny, but every single time Chris Pine was like, so, do you want to hang out? Do you guys hang out? Do you hang out? It just, like, got annoying after some point. I was just like, say it or don't, because at some point it wasn't cute anymore. Like, you knew, it wasn't like, it surpassed, like, kind of childish flirting with each other, and just was like, just either say it or don't. Like, I don't care.
That joke killed my audience. Everybody was dying.
I couldn't do it.
Even after, like, the second time, I'm saying that. It was crazy.
But it was good, and they didn't fall into too many tropes that they really could have. I was so worried about, like, him being, like, him overshining, because he's a relatively big actor that's carried multi-million-dollar movies, and she's relatively smaller, and like they really didn't. It was definitely a woman's film, and I think that I'm like the last person you'll find that's on the social justice bandwagon.
That's cool.
You know, I've gotten in so many fights with Josh about like that sort of stuff. But Josh Eubanks, a friend of the show. But I think that it was important. Like most of the time, I don't think it's necessarily important. I think with a movie like this, it was important to get make it women centric and make her a strong character that still had feminine qualities. And I think they knocked it out of the park with that.
For sure. Josh Eubanks is a creator of the show.
Yeah, I know.
He's gonna be like, this motherfucker.
So one little thing, I really did like the Ares. I'll get to this later, but I really liked the Ares twist. I was convinced it was going to be Chris Pine's character the whole time. And yeah, I thought they set it up really well where like they had the whole thing and then he could have a turn moment and they'd have to fight. I'll talk about Ares a little bit more later, but I did like how it would twist it around and it was someone that I completely didn't expect. The two last things, color scheme was amazing. We touched upon this earlier, but there was one shot that we didn't talk about that after it was done, it had the old iCloud login screen for the skyline, and then it went down to the level and it had like, you know, the ground level, and you had really gray, burnt out ground, and then
notice that?
Oh yeah, they're all Apple.
I was wondering.
Yeah,
I noticed it because of that.
You had what's her face? Diana was right in the middle in her bright red, and I felt like it was the way they did the color scale was really remarkable in this movie. And then the last thing that I'd like to talk about is that might have been the best superhero score I've ever heard in my entire life.
Absolutely.
What's her face? Tina Gao is the person who plays the cello for the theme, and that is iconic for me as much as the Avengers theme song is. And like the Avengers theme song is like one of my that stands against like a John Williams theme in my mind, except for maybe a couple.
Yeah, I was really impressed with it as well. Like Rupert Gregson Williams has played the musical fame up to this point where like all of Adam Sandler's movies and
nothing.
He had nothing, and he busted. And you know they did a great job because they have this one great amazing theme. They didn't overplay it.
Yeah,
they did a great job of being like, cool, it's only going to be in this little section. The one time I caught it, and it was kind of weird for me, they played it on the flute while I think the camera was focused on Chris Pine instead of like Gal Gadot. Mm-hmm. And like it was a weird thing, and I really want to know why that happened because it never quite went back to it. They played the theme over the wrong character, which usually is a sign of something else, and I couldn't figure it out in the movie.
Maybe, I'm sure. What was he saying at the time?
I forget. I need to rewatch the scene again. There was a lot there. So I mentioned this in an earlier podcast that I focus on music usually the second time through. It's once I've got plot, and I remember like I was listening to this and like it took me a little bit out of the visuals, which is very rare for a film score to do the first time through.
Yeah. This is the first time, arguably, I think this is only 2 times ever in my life, 3. Interstellar, The Theory of Everything, and Wonder Woman. Like, these are the only 3 movies that the music has taken me out of the movie so much so that I'm like, watching this movie, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
This music is so good. I need to look up after the movie
who
does this, because I'm sure he's done a bunch of stuff, right?
I have to say that's Wally for me.
Yeah, well, like even like in those movies I just said, you know, Hans Zimmer did Interstellar. In Theory of Everything was Johann Johannesburg, and there are super famous people, and then you have this guy coming out of nowhere. The movie of their showing the island in the beginning, and then they also after
that opening theme for the Amazonians.
Yeah,
it was reminiscent of one of my favorite scores of all time, which is Basil Polidoris's Conan the Barbarian theme. Kind of got the same thematic elements, like a proud warrior race.
Nice.
It's about to get their world turned upside down.
That's good.
And I felt that same thing that I feel in the opening of Conan when you see the sword being forged and everything. I thought it was amazing.
Cool. No, that was it for me for wins.
Going into my wins. I'm probably maybe one of the biggest fanboys of this movie. So much so that when somebody asks me about the movie, clearly they haven't seen it, I'm like, you should watch the movie and talk to me later. Giving them complete deadpan. I enjoy this movie thoroughly throughout. I think literally almost just about every point of this movie, even to the point where the first thing that I think that kind of came to mind was they were doing something a bit different, and it wasn't as over the done as not Matrix #1. I mean, that movie's almost perfect, practically perfect, but 2 and 3 was kind of trash. But I felt like in Matrix 1, they really introduced that 360 view of like the slow motion and everything's going back. But seeing like the fight choreography and it's like part CG, part choreography of these women are riding horses first of all, it's difficult to ride a horse. Second of all, not only is it difficult to tell me that you're going to go and fall off a horse in a way that you can still like grab like you can grab like a shield on the ground or a bow and arrow and still shoot that and get boom headshots all the time. Like, come on.
That's why it's important to do squats. Those thigh muscles, man.
I know, right? Also, here's a shout out to Mocha of when they were coming down the mountain. And they go jump off the mountain, shoot the actual bow and arrow in the rock, and then swing over.
Everything comes back to Attack on Titan.
Yeah, I know. I mean, come on. Come on. So there's an anime that we watch. I'm not going to bore anybody. Anyways, so that was for sure a sign. I was like, that's pretty badass so that they can actually propel themselves for that. So I would say the choreography, the fighting, the sword fighting, Wonder Woman using her lasso Wonder Woman using her lasso not only for a sense of, I'm going to capture somebody, and that's it. But for her, when she was fighting after the scene of the No Man's Land, and she's using the lasso just to kick everyone's ass in that scene, I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like, I have never seen, like you said, like Yandu's arrow. I've never seen this before. In this realm, in this DC, I need more of this. I'm super excited about that. So pumped. Gal Gadot is such a badass. I will call her goddamn Gal Gadot. Something like that. I'll work on that. It needs to be workshopped. Love the score. I know we talked about that. I don't want to necessarily kind of talk too much on Blewett's point just because it was super, super interesting. I just feel like the majority of the stuff that I already loved about this movie had been said already, and that's why I kind of want to be last, because I know everybody can probably like put it into a better sentence than I am. But the fact that they had a chance to kind of cast a wide net and talk about a lot of things of whether it's somebody's, I want to do right for the world. Like, my goal is to do right for the world, for humankind, and I need to be protecting humankind as much as possible. But that's also saying that there's a time in which I don't know everything, so I need to maybe slow down. And I do like the fact that, they really kind of focused on more equality instead of, like, just pro and con sort of thing.
Cool. Awesome.
I'm excited to talk about some things that people felt like it didn't work, because I know that we may be at ends here on some things. So, again, I'm going to start with Caroline. What some criticism do you have of the Wonder Woman?
Alright. So, like, their little paradise island was supposedly so, like, hidden that no man could find it. Why was it so easy for Chris Pine to fly through the barrier and for the Germans to also just be like, oh, yep, let's do it. Let's fuck shit up. That was kind of disappointing. I wish they had said that there was like some kind of flaw already with like the system. Like, it wasn't that it was, they made it seem like if you like can't see it, you won't cross the barrier. They didn't say like, if you cross the barrier, you'll see it. I wish they were kind of like, well, we're out in the middle of nowhere. No one's gonna find us anyway.
I thought the thing with that one was that because Wonder Woman was training, the stronger she got, the closer it would draw Ares in. And so I think that
That's true.
that training was the catalyst that kind of broke the spell a little bit.
That's a good point.
That's fair. What else you got?
I know Mike probably wants to talk about this too, but there were like some cheesy parts.
Go ahead.
Like,
You say this one.
I won't say the.
I got enough else.
Okay. So like the fact that Diana thought that love just like conquered all, I don't think love is the right word to describe it. I want to go with like empathy and compassion, because the way she was using that example was like her talking about her love for Steve, I think. And after he like did the right thing and like got rid of all of these weapons, she was like, that's because we're in love, or maybe because that was the love he had for others. But I felt like it was kind of too romanticized. And I think that I just want to go with like empathy and compassion.
It was also just a bad line. It was just
it was like really cheesy.
Even if she was like, but the power of empathy and compassion, it's like, oh, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I
It's
think
tough to bring that over, and that's actually true to who that character is and what the Amazonians are.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, when people hear love, they're not going to think of like compassionate love. They're going to think about kissy love.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of, I think that's how it came out, because of Steve. Steve, you know,
I don't
pulling
know.
his stunt.
Yeah, and having that romantic part with Steve, that's what you think she alludes to.
Yeah, and I, like, because I don't mind the fact that they, like, had a love scene. I think that was, like, really great and natural, but like I said earlier, like, I don't love interests in these types of movies, because, like, you have so much other shit to focus on, but I don't know, it kind of made it seem like it was because of Steve that she was saying that.
Yeah.
Not totally, but just like a tiny little bit.
I would say I was glad that they really pushed the whole like other like character who's of the other sex as a bimbo character on Chris Pine. Not that he was a bimbo in the movie, but he was definitely a sex object. Like, he's the one that we got to see fully undressed, during that scene.
Yeah.
And typically it's the other way around, where the female character. A great example of this is Star Trek Into Darkness, where you have this completely and utterly unnecessary scene where the main female love interest is shown in just her underwear for a fraction of a second, just to have it be the case. So I was glad they flipped that around. And then, I'm glad they flipped that around in that scenario.
Blue, what you got?
Cool. So going back about 2 minutes on that whole love moment, I thought the monologuing at the end was like very bad.
Yeah.
Like, it was, you got all these crazy graphics and this nice action, and then you just go and ruin it by telling and not showing. And there's a lot of words that were just completely unnecessary. Speaking of just like kind of pieces of the film, I thought it was like bad storyboarding. They showed the picture and present day. They're like, oh, here's the person that you got left off with in the last movie. And then they immediately went back in time. And then instead of getting a montage of her growing up, you immediately got another story that was going back in time to yet another place. And you it was ambiguous on like where you were in the storyline. Personally, if I do what I think we did for Iron Fist and offer suggestions, just started off clean narration. It could have been the mom. Just talking about the storyline in total. What you could do is you could just kind of go through it from that point on, pretty much tell, besides a couple other criticisms, the same film, and then at the end you could have her reflecting on the film. Because it also, it's to Captain America. Captain America starts in the present day, ties you into the present day, and then sends you back into the past, and then ends up in the present day. Like, you just didn't need that. It confused on where you were. It also made it made the impact of this film less impactful. That's a bad English sentence.
Correct.
But it kind of like, you know that what you're watching in the end doesn't matter because it gets you to this point. And because we all know that there's going to be a big bad in Justice League, and we also all know that Justice League is coming, it's like, well, whatever happens in this movie cannot be nearly as bad as what we're about to see.
Yeah.
The other thing, in terms of like playing with the audience, is I thought the Ares thing was dumb. I thought that like the whole like man has evil in them at all, that's a cop-out, like completely a cop-out. I thought like, yeah, him being responsible for all the wars was also dumb, because as an audience member, I know what happens in 10 to 15 years. I know World War II breaks out, so I know that the end result of this movie, killing Ares, will have literally no effect on the world. And I think I go back and forth, because I kind of look at like Dr. Poison was terribly underused, and she would have been a cool big villain that you could also have had a big showdown with her that could have made an impact of like, hey, the gas was never fully exploded. But you literally didn't fight the god of war for humanity's sake in the third sequential movie that you've done.
Yeah.
The stakes were a little bit off for me. You can't, in a movie that you know the ending. It's like if the Titanic featured aliens. We all know that the iceberg is going to sink the Titanic, so what are the aliens doing in the middle of this movie?
Like, maybe it was the acid, right? Like, the acid corroded the way the body...
No, alright, get out of here. So
when you said alien, you didn't say xenomorphs.
Yeah.
Let's make it
Right,
distinct.
so...
What I have against that is that what they did is kind of apt to Greek mythology. So, like, having the Sin of Man, like, unleashed by Pandora's box, kind of goes along with those same Greek mythology elements. And even though they don't refer to that, that's kind of what's going on here. And Ares is kind of hiding in the shadows, is kind of how he works. He sees himself as a god of order when he's a god of war and chaos. And I still thought it was really neat to see him kind of be that causality to a point, but also try to play off.
But he's not. He like admits
there's a really that he wants to say, I have good intentions for the planet. For that,
Ares isn't the root cause, because we have World War II later, we have the Korean War, we have Vietnam, we have the issues that we've been having in the Middle East, and then all of a sudden Darkseid rolls around.
I think it was just still really important to show the difference between fighting Ares versus men fighting each other, because one is very fantastical and over the top, the other is very sad and brutal and in your face as well.
Yeah, that's fair.
I wonder why they chose that character, though, to be Ares. I guess we kind of briefly touched on that, but
it's a twist.
The twist.
Yeah.
That character, the actor.
No, the character.
Okay.
Like, it's fine with Professor.
Have the guy that's pushing for peace to be the god of war. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, he's subverting himself.
But like, how convenient was it that Diana goes with Steve and Steve goes to his what was it, Commander General, Lieutenant, whatever, higher power. Like, that just seems so, like...
Because it's a movie and it has to work. So, I think that Wonder Woman really exemplifies on how badly DC missed the mark in starting their universe. I think that Wonder Woman had an absolute great dichotomy between, like, lighthearted and fun and, like, kind of heavier. I think that they should have started it with a little bit more lighthearted, get people more into it. My personal favorite for this, based on what we've seen from Justice League, Aquaman. I would have loved to start with a B-lister there. I think you could have gone into Superman and developed that character, and then had that kind of segue through Wonder Woman into Justice League. I think that Mocha wanted to speak a little bit more kind of on that segue process, so I'm going to let you take over for me from there.
I did want to speak a little bit more about it. You said a lot of it.
I'm going to let you finish.
Well, thank you so much for that lovely intro, Mike Blewett. But yeah, so in terms of criticisms, before we talk about, the overarching, or how this works in the larger picture of the Justice League, I just want to talk about the movie itself. And one of the big criticisms I had is that at its core, bear in mind, I did enjoy this film, but at its core, it was a pretty average superhero movie. It was fairly, cookie cutter in terms of the progression of the character. And, it's not really the movie's fault. It's really difficult to do something game-changing when it comes to origin stories, which is why I'm not letting this detract too much from it, because, it's hard to tell a superhero story about how they begin that's really interesting and compelling. But it is something that needs to be acknowledged.
Every single origin story we've seen so far follows the hero with 1,000 faces motif. So we've seen this plot before.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason why Joseph Campbell wrote that book, and why it's been so pervasive in so much of sci-fi, fantasy, superhero fiction. It's it feels right. It's a story that we understand as human beings, as people. But that still doesn't, that doesn't absolve this film of that mediocrity. That being said, I did enjoy the movie, but as far as outside the female characters, when we talk about dialogue, I actually felt like a lot of the dialogue for non-Diana characters was pretty weak and a little boring. I wasn't too excited with a lot of Chris Pine's dialogue, and maybe this is my fault for not being more intimately familiar with the canon of Steve Trevor, but I wasn't really there for the whole bumbling, want to do well but can't, but is torn in the moment sort of personality that he put forward. When he is standing on that watchtower with Wonder Woman and she's freaking out because she's realizing that maybe it's men that are evil, not just Germans influenced by Ares. It's like a solid 2 minutes of him just going and not being able to say anything.
Awful.
And maybe that's his character, maybe that's who he is, but it just it took me out of the moment. And I think that applied, maybe not even just non-Diana, but a lot of the male characters I felt like were just had weak dialogue. I didn't need them to be more present in the dialogue. I didn't feel like it wasn't like I needed them to have a more commanding presence. I just wanted the actual writing to be a bit more tight for them. I also felt that there were a few kind of strange directing and editing choices when it came to the film. Some of these are a little bit more subtle, and maybe, I just had too critical of an eye on it. But there was this really weird moment where when Diana is in the watchtower, she's facing Ares for the first time, and she realizes that this is a man I need to kill. The camera is behind her looking at Ares, and she goes and she reaches for her sword and realizes that it's still impaled through the guy on the roof. At that moment, the movie cuts to Chris Pine and his team doing a whole bunch of stuff, and then it cuts back, and it cuts back to the exact same scene, and she's just landing with the sword in her hand, and it was just really weird. That was super weird editing.
So I think.
I was gonna say, I was gonna praise the film until that moment for decent connections, because they had the whole we gotta stop Dr. Poison. Camera spins over to the right, and then it spins into the room from the right on Dr. Poison doing something, and I was like, oh, that was a really cool continuity thing where you don't go too long without the main character mentioning the antagonist who is now doing something more evil, and then they go pull that scene, and I was just like, what?
So I thought it was going to be a play off of when she is practicing with her aunt, and she is off her guard, is basically what her aunt says. I thought that was going to be a moment of weakness for Wonder Woman, because that was a huge point in the beginning of the movie, and it never got brought up again. That maybe she learned from it, but she was clearly off her guard at that point, and we didn't really see how she developed, why was Ares still just, waiting for her? Come on,
and if we look at that scene, right, so they could have done the exact same break, except waited 30 seconds, because what she does after she lands with the sword is she walks around the side of the building talking to Ares, and then she passes the last pillar and he's gone. And that would have been a cool place to cut it, go to Chris Pine, come back, and then they are in a different, they're having their conversation again. It was just so strange to me. Also, too, the thought process, it took me out of the movie, because then I'm sitting there and I'm like, wait a second. So that means that she climbed up on the roof, climbed the ladder, pulled the sword out of the guy's chest, then climbed back on the roof, and then just, did a side jump to, land where she was. It was just super bizarre.
And that he waited for her. He was like,
yeah.
So, all right, out of respect.
That one made sense, because he didn't want to fight her.
Well,
He didn't actually want to fight her. He thought he could convert her and, use her for himself.
That's true.
I was really hoping also
But
in
he
that
didn't
scene,
follow her. And he had been following her every other move she made. So why didn't he follow her up to the roof where she needed to pull the sword out of the dude?
I was kind of really hoping in that scene that DC would go a bit more darker, and we would see Wonder Woman killing people, with her superpower, but...
Also, I know that, Blue, you had said earlier that you never saw it coming, that Sir Patrick was Ares. I thought that telegraphed itself
what's his
immediately. That's the character's name.
Is it Patrick?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's not Sir Patrick Stewart, which is what I called you out for, because that's a real man. But no, I knew it immediately. That character's introduced, and he's in the middle of this boardroom, right? And this boardroom is filled with all these, generals that we're supposed to look at as weak and craven. But every single one of them is focused on signing an armistice to end the war. And then the next scene that we see him, he's coming to them in a bar saying, I think that what you're doing is a great idea. Here's all the funding you need to go over there and do what, the heroes should do. And I was like, oh, you're Ares. You're whispering in people's ears to get them to do bad things so that they can continue the war. That's exactly what you're doing. I felt like that telegraphed itself pretty hard.
Quick aside, that is something... when did everyone figure out she was the weapon?
Immediately as well.
But as soon as they talked about it.
Well, it was in the first 10 minutes.
Right, but they also had this huge reveal moment where she slams the sword down, and then he's like, "No, you're the weapon."
Yeah.
And I felt like that wasn't a big moment because everyone already knew.
Right.
I knew she was a weapon when the sword broke in his hand.
Well, I think
you didn't know the whole. You didn't know the whole.
That is correct, my friend.
So
the whole movie.
Here's the thing. I knew that Zeus and Hippolyta had a child. I knew that she wasn't built from clay. I knew that because Zeus has children all over the place.
Right.
So I knew that Hippolyta and Zeus had a child. I knew that coming in also, and also was like, okay, well, it's something weird, and she kept saying that you don't know, you don't understand. Cool. I thought though there was something else, and I didn't realize it was her. So I was like,
what
there's
would you
something,
think it
but I'm not sure.
Because when she went off on the boat, the Amazonians were saying to Hippolyta, you didn't tell her, and she was like,
well,
right.
You didn't tell her that her father's Zeus. Yes. I didn't. I thought though because my thing was what sword is she using?
So wait, time out. So this part doesn't matter. What I'd like to say is that we have 5 people that got it at different times, and there wasn't one specific moment, and that is bad storytelling. Okay. Because if you're gonna review, I don't care about all this. It's literally just it's specifically you, Warren. I care about the other 3 of you. I don't care about myself.
Why?
Rough.
Oh, went sad Pepe right there.
For everyone who watched this film, you're telling me that in the prologue to the movie, when they're training her and Antiope pushes her to the ground and pushes her to her limits, and she puts her wrists together and creates this gigantic explosion of force that completely baffles everybody there and is unlike anything we've seen from anyone. Nobody was just she's stronger than everyone else. Maybe she's a weapon.
Well, no, but
no one thought that.
We saw it immediately as soon as they started talking about the clay thing. Was she's the weapon. But what I'm saying is that it is it's ineffective storytelling to spread that moment out somehow over the whole movie.
Like everyone should get it at
the same time. Yeah.
So, going a bit further about Ares, and in terms of the weird choices with directing, I thought it was really odd that for the entirety of the time that Ares is revealed, from when Ares is revealed to be the god of war, he fights with these supernatural powers where it's essentially telekinesis. Like, he doesn't have to lift his hand to blow people away or to make things fall on, the opponent. And then as soon as as Wonder Woman has this realization where she goes, oh, I have superpowers too, then he decides to only fight with swords for the rest of the movie. It was just really inconsistent and weird, and it just, it struck me as odd. Like, why? He's a god. He knows he's a god.
Yeah.
Maybe you can make it... the telekinesis powers from the beginning, or he was strictly fighting with weapons from the beginning?
But yeah, show some consistency there. There was, unless you want to make the argument that he wanted to prove a point to her, but I don't know. I think that's weak and flimsy. It was just strange for me.
It definitely looks a bit strange.
I also thought, and Mike brought this up as well earlier, I think a couple people might have brought this up, but, the movie was just way too similar to Captain America, the first Avenger. And, when we got the very first Wonder Woman teaser, a couple years back, that was my immediate reaction. My gut reaction was, this is DC just kind of copying Marvel, as a Marvel fanboy, they often do. And I was like, I don't want them to do that. I want them to make an original story. And I thought that this was... And all right, let me correct this by saying I don't know too much of the source material for Wonder Woman. So maybe, Brian, you can give me some course correction here if this is an actual story that was taken from the pages of the comics. But for me, it felt like they had their Captain America character and they gave us a Captain America movie because that was already successful. And I don't want that for DC. I want DC to set itself apart and be good. It hurts their credibility for them to have a really good movie that's so similar to something Marvel's already done. Final point, and Mike Blewett went ahead and said a lot of this already on my behalf. But this movie, all right, nothing in this film aside from the secure car with the Wayne Enterprise logo and the message from Bruce Wayne connects this film to the greater Justice League ensemble film that's coming up, and I think that is pure insanity on their part. The entire reason that we're getting these origin films for Wonder Woman, for eventually The Flash, for Aquaman, is because they're leading to a big ensemble film. This isn't the MCU. They don't have 3 years to build up to this. 3 phases to build up to this. They have each of these origin films, and then they're going to the Justice League. We know it's coming. They've made it clear in Batman vs Superman that it's coming. Why didn't this tip the needle in that direction at all? There wasn't a single extra scene, whether it be after the credits or just added to the end of the film, that even remotely led towards that. All we got to see was that Bruce Wayne and Diana Prince are still friends after the credits roll in BVS. And I think that's a huge miss on their part. Bring us in, get us excited for this movie, start the hype now.
It seems
I agree that they that there should have been some connective tissue, but more to Justice League because that's coming out in November. But I kind of like that there's no post-credit scene. That they play the movie and that's it. I think if they start trying to imitate Marvel too much, they're just gonna say, "Oh, they're just imitating Marvel."
Yeah.
Sure, and I agree. There doesn't have to be a post-credit scene, but there should have been something in the movie, like you said, to be the connective tissue.
So should each of the superheroes have had their stories before Justice League? Because that's kind of what it seems like happened for the Avengers.
Well, they should have. If I had it my way, you could still get to Justice League in 3 movies. If it was one movie, Superman, Wonder Woman, Justice League, they shouldn't have done Batman vs Superman before they actually officially met up, and they shouldn't have done Suicide Squad.
Oh,
There was no background on either
Yeah.
of those movies that made you feel remotely interested. Besides
Yeah.
the fact it's like, oh my god, it's Batman, or oh my
Look at
god,
all
it's
those
the Joker.
actors.
Yeah,
Also-
I agree.
But-
But I think the world would have been better off without the Academy Award-winning Suicide Squad.
I have two major criticisms I wanted to go over. First is I thought Dr. Poison and General Ludendorff were two mustache-twirling villains. I mean, there was to the point where they were like emulating scenes from Austin Powers, things like Dr. his crew would do, whether it's from like the magic bath salts gas, or
Yeah.
when they threw
That's
that gas can
such a
into the
good
room with all the German generals. After that, they do have a moment where they do the group laugh together.
Oh my god, yeah, that was terrible.
And I was like, oh, that's just straight up out of Austin Powers. That's ridiculous. And my other criticism is just when it came to the action scenes, there were some great moments, but having slow-mo happen in the middle of the action scenes, I wish Hollywood would get over this crap of just slowing the action down. I love seeing the kineticism and the impact of an action scene. So, like, the things in Themyscira were beautiful, like how you just see, hey, they were just super skilled warriors. But when she's, like, sliding on the floor, they have to slow it down to see her attack the Germans. No, just show me, see her going really fucking fast and hitting these people like a Mack truck. And show me that power that she has. I would appreciate that a lot more over the slow-mo effect.
I think they did a decent job, especially with what I was talking about earlier, those bull rush scenes where like they would speed it up, hit the action shot in slow-mo, and then speed it up to the next guy, which I liked.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. It's a stylistic choice.
I mean, some of my favorite action movies of like the last 5 years are the raid movies, and like when you see a knee hit the face, you feel the impact of that knee hitting the face, and you're able to feel like the force behind that impact as well.
I felt
Without
like she was
force.
going real fast. I maybe slightly disagree. 'Cause,
One of
yeah, they show it in slow mo, but I feel like there was a lot of balance to it.
I got two things to add to that. One is that I agree with Brylan in that, there's something to be said for kineticism in combat scenes. Sticking with the theme of superhero movies, one of my favorite, fight scenes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Yeah, The Winter Soldier, where Steve Rogers is in the elevator, surrounded by guys that just are there to capture him. And, he has his line where he says, before we get started, does anyone want to get off the elevator? And then the fight starts, and it is just fast and, like, hard hits and not a lot of jumping and moving because you're in a tight space. And there was so much force and strength to, that scene. And I agree. I think that you lose some of that when you slow things down just so that the audience can say, ooh, look how cool this looks. The second point to that is this is a problem with Zack Snyder's legacy. The whole slow-mo fight scene thing is from the success of 300. And that's just permeated throughout all of, a lot of Zack Snyder's influence permeates throughout what's going on in the DCEU, for better and for worse. And I think in this situation, it's for worse.
When they were watching, when young Diana was watching the Amazonians train, everything was just like in regular time. And that was really cool to see. But maybe it was just like to like highlight her specific skills to like slow it down to, I don't know. It's like an emphasis kind of thing.
Anything last?
And I thought it'd be a really cool idea to like kind of circle back around at Themyscira. I wanted to see more of Themyscira actually, and remind people that the stakes of like the poison gas and everything, or even Ares, is that Themyscira is in danger as well as the rest of the world.
I'm only going to say one criticism because all of my criticisms have literally been already said, so I appreciate everybody for reading my mind, like Masterminds. No, not terrible movie. I was kind of super bummed that the movie actually focused on a love story. I was kind of hoping that it's more of, I understand Superman focused on a love story, but you're giving me a movie that's now is a heroine, like it's mainly based on a woman that is wonderful, right? Wonder Woman. So therefore, does it have to be based on a love story? Does it always have to be based with, like we talked about in theater, we have like the ingenue, right, and the man always pursuing the woman, and we even talk about from before of Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Why the hell did Karina end up with Henry? Doesn't make any sense. That romance came out of nowhere.
Whatever.
But then at the same time is this movie, we're talking about equality. We're talking about the fact that, you know, we don't have to go into what a society thinks. We can go and tell society what they should think about me. Why did it have to be about a love story? I get why. I get that it's more of the... I know. I get why, and I see that it's the fact that it's something to do with like the source material portion of it, but it upset me, and it was kind of a bummer, but I understand why they did it. So I guess something that was a little bit more impactful was the fact that you can have a friendship, like, you don't have to have like a romantic relationship. Like, you can have the dance, you can have all that stuff. I'm even surprised when the span of like 2-3 weeks that Diana even has the ability to kind of feel this deep of love.
Yeah.
I was hoping that they completely keep that scene that we have no idea what Steve Trevor actually says, and he goes up in the plane, he blows up, and that's it. Don't flash back to that scene and tell him the dialogue. I think as an audience, I think as an audience, we all knew what he was gonna say.
Okay.
But it'd be more impactful to tell me, like, cut the scene out with them sleeping together because
leave it up to the audience.
Yeah, leave it ambiguous, just for the sake of.
I've got an interesting perspective on this really quick. I don't think that every movie needs a sex scene or love to be a meaningful and impactful movie. What I will say, though, is that, you know, this movie, at the end of the day, whether directly or indirectly, is about female empowerment. I think that's an important thing to take out of it, and I think that wasn't an intent on the part of the director and the creative team there. When we're introduced to Diana and she heads out into the world with Steve Trevor, she's not naive about what it is to, like, have sex or to experience, like, male and female connection.
She's very knowledgeable.
She has a practical knowledge.
Yes.
But she's not dumb and she's not oblivious.
She read 12 volumes of whatever their kernel knowledge is.
Cleopatra's, baiting techniques. But in that scene where we have her make that decision to take Steven to her bed, that's, like, she's making that decision. She wasn't seduced. This wasn't a scene where he had his arm up on the wall and he's speaking nice things to her and she's swooning.
Made it together.
She made a conscious decision to get to D, and that's more power to
That's a hell of a move because they didn't say anything. That's a hell of a move to walk into a room with a girl that you just saw beat the hell out of an entire German town. You're it's like if this doesn't go the way you think it's gonna go, you're gonna be in a world.
Why can't the woman want the D? That's a controversial topic, and I don't.
Yeah,
you brought it up. So
I get where you're coming from. More, it doesn't.
There it is. Everyone knows
she made that decision, and I think that it was another sign of the empowerment of her as being a person with her own agency.
Yeah.
And her own ability to make decisions.
We're getting ready to wrap it up, and we're gonna finish a couple things tonight, but. Last things I would say is happy birthday to the Down Front Podcast, and I'm super interested to know of somebody rated this lower than everybody else, which I hate his guts, but it's fine. But Mike Blewett, what's your grade for this movie?
So I give it a...
Oh, perfect.
Nope.
B+. It was definitely the best that the DCEU has done so far. I still thought it was pretty flawed.
Flawed.
Flawed, yeah.
Flawed. I thought you said fun. I was like, wait, that doesn't make any sense.
Definitely trending in the right direction, and honestly made me actually excited for Justice League. I was like, whatever, it's going to get slam-packed in between Thor and Star Wars this fall.
Hashtag damn, Godot.
I was down.
It works that time. Caroline?
I was also going to say B+.
B+? Okay, why?
Because these types of movies are not always my favorite, but it was really engaging, and I really liked the story, and it was relatable. And
Doesn't sound like a B+, but okay.
okay, well, that's how I feel. I don't
Mocha.
need to explain.
Sexy Mocha, always looking great. Not better than Brylan though. So, but you're looking alright.
I'll take it. That's the best compliment I've gotten all day. I will say that my final comments mimic Blewett's almost word for word. I think that this was a high watermark film for the DC Extended Universe, and if we were just looking at it within that bubble, I'd give it an A. However, I think as a film, it's pretty average overall, despite the leaps and bounds it's made. So I will give it a B+.
I think you're wrong, but I still love you.
Oh, well, thank you. I love y'all too.
Not y'all, just me. Bradley, what you got?
I'm going to give it an A. And I think if we look at it compared to other superhero origin movies, this is definitely in the upper echelon of origin movies. And you have a fantastic new actor in Gal Gadot, who I hope to see be the star of a lot more films. And I would say when it comes to DCEU, this is like a close second to the magnificence that is Man of Steel, which I think is one of the best superhero films ever made.
Oh my god.
I saw that, and I can almost agree with you. I give this movie an A. Going off of Bradley's thing, there's one scene in the Man of Steel. Spoiler alert for the people who actually haven't seen Man of Steel. Kevin Costner dies. But that one scene in the movie was such a powerful scene because he sacrifices himself for. It talks about so much. It's such a weighted scene. So I thoroughly enjoy that movie. A lot of the rest of the stuff in the movie is not very good, to be honest with you. But that scene, like all the stuff that he was a kid, that was good. But when he's a grown adult, not so much. Wonder Woman, though, I love this movie a lot. I can't quite give it an A+ just because of all the criticisms that we all had talked about it here. But I say that it's very close. Even if I have to say, rank it in the DC universe, doesn't compare, of course. But if I do have to rank it into the Marvel universe, I would say it's on the upper echelon of that. It's better than both Thor movies. So there you go for that. It's definitely better than both of the Iron Man 2 and 3. So it's definitely not in the bottom 4, right? Even watching this movie and looking at it, like if I have to say origin film, I would watch Wonder Woman over watching Captain America 1. Just because of the things that it's trying to press and it's trying to say, and they at least did something different that arguably I know you can't do with Captain America. Talk about a blonde 6'2" jack dude. I mean, you sexy, but I'm sorry.
He's blonde.
So yeah, he's like dirty blonde. So I would say like Wonder Woman really falls into the A range for me in that particular case. And with that, I would say. Thank you, Brylan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mocha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mocha, again, because I don't like this mic.
No one does.
I'll take it. I'll take all I can get.
Thank you, Caroline.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Michael.
Oh. Thank you, Warren.
Thank you, Warren. Oh, me?
Aww.
For me? Yeah. And I would say thank you so much for everybody hanging out with us. It's a little bit late. It's about 6 a.m. in the morning.
That's not
I'm not very good.
Anyone who's been there since the beginning of these 2 years.
Yeah, no. Thanks.
Thank you to Ryan Dowd.
Basically just Ryan Dowd.
Thank you to Ryan Dowds. Thank you everybody for hanging out with us for 2 years, and I hope to be another 2 years that we can review this podcast and how ridiculous it was. Maybe we'll drink more than one bottle of wine this time. Who knows? And with that, we were going to be signing off. And Brylan, where can you find more of your work, bud?
You can find me on Twitter, physically on Twitter, at Brylan, BRILUND.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
But it's provocative.
And also, I post cool photos on Instagram. I am Brylan. Where can we email Jesse, Mike Blewett?
We're getting to that when I start going through this.
Wait, Boca, where can you find...
Sure, so you can find me at Twitter. Mocha Li. And then
so
on Instagram at Mocha Mike, as God intended it. It's different than my Instagram, which is where you can find lots of nice pictures. My Twitter is different because, as any long time, by long time I mean for the past 3 months, listener of the podcast knows, there is some stranger out there who thinks that he is Mocha Mike, but he's old and white and gray, and it doesn't fit his brand, so he won't give it up. So until then, you can find me at Mocha Mike, Li.
Mike Blewett, where can we find more of your work?
Alright, you can find me at Jesse Rand's Bikini Wax at ymail.com.
Ymail!
He's got to keep those thunder thighs nice and clean to get into that suit of armor.
He has some good thighs.
He does have very excellent thighs.
There you go.
If you also want to find me, you can find me at My News Music or My News Band.
That's funny. You have a show coming up this week.
We do. We're playing on El Friday Nighto. See, I'm speaking Spanish. Just keep up with your Latin inventors. Yeah, we're trying to bridge cultural gaps. It's awesome. This is what we do on Down Front. So, yeah, we're playing at like 11 o'clock. So everyone should be able to make it because everyone will be out of work at Hennessy's in Boston.
That's Hennessy's, but that's normally called the near Faneuil Hall.
You probably know better than I do. I've never been to this place.
I don't
That's.
think so.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I've never been there. I've never seen a show there. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna show up.
Hennessy's outside of next to Faneuil Hall. Yes.
Yeah.
They have actually one of my favorite gins there, which is Nolet gin.
Hennessy's.
You'll get a cocktail of that. Do about maybe 2-3 ounce pours, a little bit of splash of water, a little bit of ice, and like orange peels and lime peels. Phenomenal.
I'm gonna take that if I have a free drink.
Yeah.
Seriously, you should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dope.
That's good. Cool.
Cool.
As always, I love your face.
Oh, I do too.
Oh. Oh, you like gear for something?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's all about me. No return compliments.
Fair enough. Caroline, where can you find more of your work?
Honestly, like Instagram, man, because I tried to open up an Etsy shop. It's just not happening right now.
What's your
So
Instagram
my
name?
Instagram name, if you want, sometimes I post my art, is Caroline Rose, spelled with a Z, only because the S was taken.
See a lot in common with Mocha Mike.
Caroline Rose.
You can relate. We need to talk about our pains.
Yeah. I post a lot of my art on there. I do art. I paint things. That's it.
Cool. And with that, we are the Down in Front podcast, in which case we talk about a bunch of different things, whether it's live, not live, on Twitter, Reddit, Patreon. We have a bunch of stuff. The one thing that we are focusing on, we're super excited for the fact that we have our YouTube channel of it, and I will be posting our YouTube channel in the show notes because can't read all those characters. So it's super exciting for that. So I'm really excited to get a bunch of different views, actually different subscribers, so that we can put more and more content of our live tweeting, live viewing, and just more and more stuff up there so we can see our beautiful faces, of course. But for Facebook, we have facebook.com/DIF podcast. That's facebook.com/downinfront podcast, so DIF podcast. We have an email, downinfrontpodcast@gmail.com. We have a Twitter, @_DIFP. That's @_downinfront podcast. We have Reddit. We're on Stitcher. The main things that I normally do, you can find a bunch of my private work. I have an Instagram. I have a bunch of other stuff, but normally I post a bunch, and I actually recently just posted a wine, a South African blend. On Friends with Blends on our Twitter and our Instagram, so definitely go check us out because I post a couple different blends and I'm traveling to Chicago this weekend, so I'm going to be trying a bunch of blends and a bunch of deep dish pizza. So I'm excited about that deep dish pizza though. So find us on Instagram, find us on Twitter. We talk a lot about that. And I'm part of me, Derek, and Megan Arnold for that. So thanks so much, everybody, and any lasting thoughts? No? All right, bye.
Bye.
Email.
Bye.